Hello everyone, this is Bentley. Recently we were doing some stuff in the, primary fish room nowadays, where we are now used to be my display room. And it's kind of turned into half storage and then my retirement tank. What is basically directly where you are, you don't want to see that. It's just a pile of storage. It looks terrible. Anyway, I did mention that maybe we should do a kind of an update on the retirement tank because there's some new fish that have come in that I've basically adopted to help some friends out. And there's some other relevant updates in there too. So why don't we do that? Let me grab the camera and let's take a little tour and talk about what's going on in the retirement tank, where some of the problems are, and maybe some plans for its future. So here we are at the retirement tank. And you can see the fish are doing pretty dang good. But the plants, not so much. We definitely have to put in some work here, getting the plants back to where they need to be. I've got a bunch of Crypt Affinis metallic red over here. It doesn't really show the metallic red super well when you don't have CO2, but it had a huge melt off. So yes, even I deal with crypt melts, and these were super well established. Up through shortly after I went to Triple Crown, and then I dealt with a pretty big melt at the tail end of summer. And I'm slowly getting stuff, so if we were to come in nice and close, you can see some of the kind of, let me get the focus to help fix itself there, but you can see some of the younger plants there coming back. And a bunch of my my tiger lotus that used to be in here all got very, very angry and melted. But basically I have to do a bunch of work in here. Basically we need some root tabs, and we might even need some CO2. You can see like the Anubias here on this wood has not been doing so great. The fish look good though. Look at those fat boys. And all the Anubias over here on the rocks, and even you can see some of the rocks like fell. They got knocked over. Just generally need to do some work in this tank. And I've got some thoughts on it, other than just adding new plants and removing some of the ones that are struggling. But one of the biggest things is my algae kind of maintenance crew, if you will. I have some super red bristlenose in here, but some of these like surface algae, like if you look on this wood, right, you can see that kind of like black surface algae that builds up, and you can see it on this Anubias up here, especially, right? That stuff is all taking some hits, and really what it is like, this is the retirement tank, right? So I used to have a bunch of autosynclus in here. They've all probably passed away because they were first introduced into this tank about 6 years ago. I need to kind of reestablish a snail colony, so I'll probably do like some nearite snails, just because they're a really, really effective cleaner. And that way I don't have to worry about some massive snail explosion in this tank. But basically, we have to do a lot of cleaning. Now let's talk the fish. I mentioned we added a lot of fish to the retirement tank. First off, we got this big group of roseline sharks, the Denison barb, whatever name you want to go by. I love these guys. I think they're fantastic with rainbow fish tanks. I think you see them just swimming around, being all social. They're peaceful, chilling with the rainbows. Got this nice 6-foot tank to enjoy. And then from a friend who's local and a member of my club, I got a group of Kamaka rainbow fish. We'll follow this big male here. He's beautiful. We got another one right up here. And a couple of females are in this group. If I remember right, it's 2 males and 3 females. One of them has been a little stressed. For those of you who are rainbow fish fans, you can actually see back there, right? There's that kind of like pale color in the tail, and unfortunately, that is usually one of the telltale signs of Mycobacterium, aka fish TB, which rainbow fish are really susceptible to. So what does that mean? anything that comes into the retirement tank basically has to stay in the retirement tank. It can't go elsewhere. And fish I want to like breed or keep or something like that can't come in here. Plain and simple. This fish is chasing bubbles out of the this little axelrodi here. We'll kind of come in closer. See that axelrodi boy doing his thing. And this big one. Or, I'm sorry, that's the female. There's the male right there. So we've got the 2 axelrodi that are in here. We've got 5 Kamaka rainbows. My rubrostriata that are left. Here's one. Just kind of get up close on him as he runs away immediately. they're so shy around the camera. They're in here. They were getting a little skinny, but ever since I moved them here, they've been fattening up, and they're a lot happier in this bigger tank. You can see, I actually just did kind of a big water change, so you'll see lots of little like micro bubbles, and the water looks kind of cloudy because it's just so cold in Washington right now that the water is coming in way colder, and it releases all those micro bubbles of oxygen. So I have to do it in small amounts. Basically, when I'm doing water changes when it's this cold, for a tank this big, I won't do a big full water change. I'll do several small water changes over the course of a couple days to minimize the risk of those microbubbles affecting the fish, and it causes a syndrome called the bends, which is kind of bad. Now let's talk about the big boy in the tank. This big parva. Look at that handsome boy back there. This my camera wants to focus on everything but him. Hey, come on, buddy. There we go. Look at that guy. But he's big, beautiful. We got some SAEs in here, but they don't do some of that surface algae all that well. And then we've got this big guy. We'll see if he'll not be shy. Come on, buddy. This is a hybrid rainbow that has grown up in this tank and has been in here forever. He looks kind of okay, but you can see how dull and kind of muted he is. In person, he occasionally shows some nice color, but it's definitely like, this is what we talk about, how rainbows become kind of ugly and brown when they're hybrids. Is this guy is just kind of so-so. In person, he looks all right, but very rarely do you see that like brilliant, vibrant color that you're used to. I mean, look at this axelrodi and this parva over here. And you look at like those Kamaka rainbows compared to like that boy, and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. The last thing that's in here, I got a couple of random females. There's a random Chilatharina swimming around in here somewhere. She's probably hiding. Anytime I get the camera out, she hides. Oh, there she is. Hey, you're a big girl. Right up front. Behind the axelrodi. It's just big. I'm not even sure what she is. There's just like a random adoptee that I ended up with. And then there's a female Calimoisi, who's kind of solo because her male died, unfortunately. Back in the heat wave, I lost a lot of my Calimoises. And then this is a female etnaensis. She's super healthy, which is unfortunate because had I not moved all these fish kind of together at the same time, I would have probably kept her separate, because getting female etnaensis is apparently very hard right now. Or at least that's what Gary told me. So we'll take another panning shot here at the devastation that once was this beautiful tank. I say that with a slight smile, because I know I can always fix this kind of stuff, and I can add plants, and I can do things to make it look beautiful and amazing again. It's just some time. I had 2 FX6s on this for a while, and the FX6 that used to have the Fluval BioFX media, like you can see actually the BioFX box over here, and this like mess that is my half storage room while I'm kitty sitting. I had to move a bunch of things and make space for kitties, and it's made everything kind of hectic around my home. That filter died within a month. I think something just got stuck in the impeller, and I haven't had the time to like fully tear it apart. And now that we're dealing with winter weather, it's just too cold outside. I mean, it's at time of filming, it's late afternoon. It's starting to get dark outside. It is dark outside now. I had to look out the window, and it's 20 degrees outside. It's like way too cold to sit outside with a hose and really properly service that thing, which is what I need to do just because of how like my house is set up and things like that. And I'm working on a big canister filter like that. And I need to pull the whole thing apart and really, really work on it and super clean it. I have to do that outside. And the only other place I could potentially do it is inside my garage, but I don't have a proper water source or drainage to do that correctly. Unlike outside where I could just do it on top of like my garden or in my driveway or something and not worry about it. So, this is the retirement tank as it stands. I do need to go get probably just some nearite snails, given the sign that might be fish TB that's happening with this one Kamaka. I don't necessarily want to put a bunch of autocyclists in here. However, with this tank, I have a rule. Fish that come in here get to live out the rest of their lives in peace in this tank, get nice food. You can see, like, just some extreme krill, and I feed them frozen a couple times a week. The plecos get repashy regularly, so like the plecos that are in this tank won't be breeders, but they just kind of take care of this tank. I have breeding stock in other tanks, so I'm not worried about that. Just similarly, like the plants that are in here really can't transfer anywhere without doing a hyper cleansing, and we're talking like some fairly aggressive cleaners, which would most likely kill the plants. But hey, there's a potential. The only thing I thought about is potentially replacing this tank, because it is an old glass tank, and they're heavy, and I wouldn't mind something with a slightly different footprint. So something that's a little bigger front to back. So an example would be, I've thought about this acrylic that I have here in my corner, getting this set up, but the way that I would have to do that is I'd have to take all the fish out of this tank. I would have to put them in a temporary tank, tear this tank completely down, and then from there, and I really want to just like follow these roseline sharks because they're so pretty. From there, set up the new tank in this position here, just because it would fit the room better, and get it all cycled, so they would probably stay in something like, I'd have to have all these fish live in like temporarily a 40 breeder, or like I'd have to get a hold of a 75 or something that I was also willing to completely get rid of when it was done, or just completely tear apart and bleach. Just because, again, if we're dealing with any potential mycobacterium, you don't want to risk that, because it's so dangerous for rainbow fish, and they're so susceptible to it. So that being said, there's a little tour of the retirement tank. What do you think? That's your tour of the retirement tank as it stands currently at the tail end of 2022. Looks a little worse from wear. Yeah. Needs a little work. Yeah. But that's all easy stuff. We can recover plants. Even people who have the best plants or are the best at plants, whatever you want, in some tanks might be struggling in other tanks. This guy. Doing really good in some tanks. Not so good in others. But, it's fixable. And one of the big things is identifying where the problems are and adapting to those problems. So, like I said, there's an acrylic tank that way. You can kind of barely just see it over my shoulder over there. And I've kind of pondered basically converting the retirement tank from this tank here to that tank. Now, you might say, well, Bentley, if you're worried about the myco, like you said, wouldn't you not want to move it? And you got a valid point. But when you completely empty a tank, you can always sanitize it. And it's a lot easier to sanitize and restart something like an acrylic tank than it is a glass tank. Just because you got seals, you got all sorts of stuff, and that sanitization could potentially cause damage to the silicone. It's unlikely, but it depends on how aggressive you're going in sanitizing those tanks. Whereas an acrylic, it's not going to happen just because your seals, your seams, are welded together, right? So it's a lot easier to do some of that maintenance. Also, like, you can see some scratches. This tank's old. It's got scratches in the glass. I got it used 6 years ago from somebody else, and they had like big fish in this thing. And so, you can see looking at it, like, the tank's not perfect. It's not in perfect shape, but it's been held great. It's been in great shape for a long time. It's gone under numerous water tests. I don't do anything too crazy or aggressive in this thing. So it'll hold. But with that being said, I want to hear from you guys. In the comments down below, let me know. Should I look at rebuilding and in a completely different tank, the retirement tank? Do you like the concept of a retirement tank? Do you think I'm doing it completely wrong? whatever it may be, let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing from you guys. I love your feedback. Sometimes it even steers an entirely new video on this channel. If you did enjoy this video and enjoy like little peeks like this, a little just kind of casual tours, not as like set up and crazy, you know, let me know about that stuff too. Maybe give it a little like, maybe share, be like, hey, this is a great idea. This guy has a retirement tank, or look at this dope with his retirement tank, and he's showing off this ugly tank where he's let his plants go to hell, and whatever it may be. You choose. If you enjoyed all this stuff, please consider giving me your subscription. It means the world. It helps out all of us YouTubers. I mean, literally, subscribing is the best thing you can do. It shows YouTube, I like this stuff. Please show me more. And then it trickles out, right? All those good things. So that's kind of going to wrap us. I mean, this is basically coming out the day before Christmas, right? Geez, Christmas Eve is when this debuts. And there's only one more video before the end of the year. And then I get married the next day after the next video comes out. So let's talk about the next video real fast. What's coming up? We're going to be working on the first 40 breeder back in the primary fish room, with those new tanks that are coming in to replace all the small tanks. We're doing 2 40 breeders. We're going to do the first one where we're going to start doing an aquascape, set up CO2, the whole shebang. I actually need to go procure some items for that tank. I've got some beautiful driftwood, but I realized the kind of rock I have in spare is not the kind of rock I want. So I've got to go get some rock Christmas weekend. Set myself up for destruction, haven't I? That being said, guys, I hope you look forward to the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay awesome. Just a short one. I mentioned I was kitty sitting, so we have this box from Costco, and the cats would not. This is Sparrow, by the way, and for some of you who've been watching the channel for a long time, or maybe on my Instagram, you might recognize him. His sister's off hiding somewhere. But they wouldn't really sit in the chair. They would sit like on top of it, on the back here. But they wouldn't, or they would go behind the chair, but they wouldn't sit in the seat. So we put this box on with a little blanket in it, and now both of them will sleep together in this box, which is so adorable. But look at this handsome boy. This big floofy snowshoe boy. Sparrow. Sparrow. It's like, nah, Dad. Nah. Stepdad, you can't get me to do nothing.
Hi, Pixel. Pixel. Come here. Oh, that's my pretty girl. There you are. There's Pixel. There's Pixel. Say bye-bye, Pixel. That's basically bye-bye in cat.